Hello, good morning and welcome, and here I am out of the house and in an art installation in Kirkintilloch. What you can see is pillars, concrete pillars with artwork associated with it along the canal from where I live, and the artist, it's called Abstraction 781 by Rachel Barron, and the artist put this together to commemorate the fact that where I am standing, I believe, was close to the site of the Lion Foundry. Lion Foundry was a major employer within Kirkintilloch and made lots of castings, including the red phone boxes, which are a symbol of Britishness all over the whole of the United Kingdom. And I remember a few years back when my son Kieran was down performing in London that I did one of these next to this art installation in Kingston, where these phone boxes were falling over because the need for phone boxes in the United Kingdom has of course fallen well away because of the need, in fact not the need, but because we've all got mobile phones. But here, the Lion Foundry was obviously a major employer, and indeed a place where many of the castings that we have in factories and indeed in sites along, like the phone boxes, the roads and byways of the United Kingdom, were prevalent. So one of the interesting things was that they cast gratings for ventilation. And these went all over the world, but the place where there was poor ventilation was, of course, the very factory in which they were made. So there was a sketch which Rachel Barron, the artist, discovered called Installation Number 781, which is what this art installation is based on. And what you've got is various colours on each of these pillars, which do cast kind of shadows on the canal at various points depending on where you stand, which should collect together, I think, in order to give you some kind of idea of what it looked like. This installation number 71, a great in a factory which lasted right up until the late 20th century and began late 19th century. It was 1880 it was founded. So I love art installations, I love these kinds of things that are there and along, and I'm going to explore more and more of them over the next few weeks in the town in which I find myself living, because I think as a nod to the past and indeed an indication of direction for the future, particularly as we come out of the pandemic, the arts have taken a massive hit. Theatres are beginning to open, and indeed the artist here, who originally got her first degree in Gothenburg in Sweden. She's born in Glasgow. She went to art school in Edinburgh and then went back to Gothenburg in Sweden to finish off her education in the art world. But her next exhibition is in Gothenburg in Sweden, Rachel Barron. But she's left us something here which I think is pretty terrific, pretty odd, but with a connection particularly to the past, and also in the what I would call the main street, but it was called Cowgate in Kirkintilloch because town planners shifted where the main street was. They've also got a phone box that sits as a kind of memorial telling you part of the story of the Lion Foundry, and I'm quite sure there are many people round about this local area who remember that foundry and factory very, very well. But for those of us who are incomers, the fact that there is some kind of legacy to remind ourselves of what it is that was here before is really important. Of course, over the years it has found itself being graffitied, and what we can see here is the graffiti artists have been out in some kind of force, which is debatable as to whether it's terrible, awful, or I like graffiti, and I think that as an urban culture it is much maligned. So this week, now that I'm back out and about and having a a period of time in order to explore the local area. My writing has this week once again proved itself to be quite enterprising and interesting because of what's been happening. In terms of boxing, Billy Joe Saunders, given my views and thoughts on that, getting stuff back up and talking boys last week. The site had been down, but also Joshua Boatsy last night, managing a fantastic win, a fourth round stoppage, and a very interesting bill that was on by Matchroom with lots of things to debate. Also, for Ringside Report, I've been looking at the boxer of the past being a guy called Martin Murray, who had not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 world title attempts, none of which he managed, but never ducked a fight. Looked at Touch of Frost, the television programme, which David Jason go from being a comedy actor into taking on a very serious role. And also for America, talked and written about how the exotic pets that Joe Exotic and others have brought into the British consciousness don't seem to make a lot of sense to us over here, particularly as I noticed that there's a murder suspect in Houston who released a tiger, his pet tiger, in amongst the suburbs, which seems a bit strange. For the Scottish Football Supporters Association, I'm about to put up the stuff that I'd done last week, but this week I have taken a view of Conor McGregor wanting to invest in Celtic, imagining what it would be like if him and Dermot Desmond were at nursery together, and also the profits from a foreign land idea that many Scottish managers are making a splash down south, but we don't seem to always value them so much in Scotland. So all of that ongoing. What have I learned this week? I've learned that theatre's opening is certainly to be desired. It's one of the reasons I came down to look at an art installation. Theatre is going to come back, and in the context at the moment of things happening where large crowds gathering are quite important for us to have a collective response to any kind of event. Yesterday, Rangers fans collected outside Ibrox in order to celebrate their first title win in 10 years. In terms of football in Scotland, that was a massive moment, and one which was given its full vent by legions of Rangers fans, thousands of them marching from their stadium in Govan into the centre of Glasgow. The difference between that and also the event this week, which made me very proud of being Scottish, which was on Eid, Muslim holiday, the Home Office of the United Kingdom government turning up in Pollokshields, a suburb of Glasgow, in a street to take away 2 Muslim immigrants in a van to be deported, but they were unable to do so because the street turned out and refused to allow them to take them. Man went underneath the van with his bike. I don't know how the bike might be important, but I'm sure it must be as a symbol of being unable to transport people away, it being underneath the wheels of the van. Perhaps that metaphorical image was in itself enough, but the community within Glasgow combined together and refused to allow the Home Office to deport, to take away these 2 immigrants. It's close, if not same, as what happened many years ago when children, young people in a high school in Glasgow realised that their friend in the class was likely to be deported by the Home Office, and they set up and established resistance to that, eventually leading to a play, Glasgow Girls, which became a film, Glasgow Girls, about the resistance to this type of inhumane methodology adopted by the British government to remove people who have legitimately been in the United Kingdom for a period of time, but who are deemed to be illegitimately here because of rules and regulations which are in themselves questionable at best and at worst, likely to lead to many people in our communities who contribute a huge amount being taken away and put into places, countries that their families left decades ago and to which they have absolutely no connection. The 2 young gentlemen who were taken away, I believe one of them certainly has been paying tax in this country for at least 12 years. So they were justified in mobbing that street as they did, masked, chanting, "Let our neighbours go," until eventually, after a standoff, that's exactly what happened. The neighbours were released and the crowd cheered because action taken by ordinary people who lived in an ordinary street against the forces of oppression. And I'm not overstating the case. We had people like me who are Scots, proud Scots, very proud of being Scottish, because it meant that we stood up for what was right, no matter the consequences or the cost. And that, for me, makes it a very strong difference between the government in the United Kingdom and what they want to do, and the people of Scotland and what they need to have the opportunity to do. So, until next week, where I will find myself, maybe not at an art installation, but somewhere on the trails, trail in Kirky, or even in Bishopbriggs, or somewhere close. It's bye for now.